All right, so before we get into displacement reaction, first we need to understand that the more reactive the metal, the greater tendency of it to lose electrons. Okay, lose electrons so that they can form positive ions. Let me give you an example. So this is the reactivity series, right? You have your most reactive to least reactive. So when the most reactive element here, potassium, when it loses electrons, it becomes the potassium ion. Okay, K plus, potassium ion. Then same thing for silver. When it loses electrons, it becomes a silver ion. Okay, so what this is saying is that since potassium is more reactive than silver, there's a higher chance that it will lose electrons compared to silver. Okay, there's a higher tendency for it to lose electrons to become a positive ion. So now that we understand this, let's go on to displacement reaction. Displacement reaction is where your more reactive metal displaces a less reactive metal from its solution, okay, from its compound. For example, zinc plus copper 2 sulfate give you zinc sulfate plus copper. So in here we have two metals, right? We have zinc and then we have copper from copper 2 sulfate. Okay, so if we look at the reactivity series, zinc is here and copper is here. So zinc is of course more reactive than copper because it is above copper in the reactivity series. So zinc is more reactive than copper. And since it is more reactive, it is able to lose electrons more readily. So it's able to displace copper from the solution copper 2 sulfate. Okay, so this is copper 2 sulfate and this is zinc. It's basically displacing it. So zinc takes the place of copper. Then now outside you have copper. Let me give you an analogy for this. So in a small office, there's this manager named Tom. Okay, this is Tom, who is a manager. So even though he had the title of the manager, he struggled with simple things like decision making, hitting the deadlines, and he also didn't have the skills to lead effectively. On the other hand, we have Jerry, who is just a regular employee. Okay, even though Jerry only joined the company 2 months ago, he was far more competent. Okay, he's more competent than Tom. He could solve problems quickly, he could communicate well, and he had the respect of the whole team. So what did the CEO do? He replaced Tom with Jerry. Okay, so now Jerry becomes the manager. And Tom becomes the regular employee. Okay, Jerry, being more competent, is able to replace Tom from the managerial position. Just like displacement reactions, the more reactive metal can displace the less reactive metal from the solution or from the compound. All right, then let's look at the second example, which is iron plus copper 2 oxide to give you iron 2 oxide plus copper. Okay, so the two metals we are comparing here is iron and copper. This copper is from copper 2 oxide. Okay, so iron is here and copper is here. Okay, iron is above copper, so it's more reactive. So it's more reactive than copper. That's why it's able to displace copper from copper 2 oxide. So after the displacement happens, they both subsides. So now you have iron 2 oxide and copper as the products. So that is displacement reactions.